It's the old Doctor Who show, episode number 113. The Time Monster.
Go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine. You couldn't control my mind before, and you certainly can't control it now.
Would you like a jelly, Debbie?
The TARDIS, when working properly, is capable of many amazing things.
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flows, and the TARDIS will be free of the force field now.
Well, the TARDIS is more than a machine. It's like a person, you see.
The resulting reaction, describe it. Are you ready?
Welcome back to the old Doctor Who show, your classic tri-weekly Doctor Who review podcast. My name is Eric. And I'm joined, as always, by the delightful, the joyful Dan. Dan, say hi again. This is our second take. First one I think was a little bit better. I felt a little bit more energy, but I still screwed up the whole intro. We don't know how to talk. We don't know how to interact at the top of the show, and I blame myself. I think it's I had too many words. I had too many words.
Your fault. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah. I mean, this is only the 113th time we've done this, so
113
we'll figure it out eventually.
Lucky number 113. Isn't that fantastic?
Everyone's favorite. Yeah, it's pretty good. So Eric, how are you doing? It was a big week.
Oh, it's been a big week. It's been a big, tiring, exhausting. Waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to check my Amazon ranks. That's where I am. The book launched, which first off, do we have the greatest listeners in the world? Yes, we do, yes. Dan.
Yes.
Dan, we have the greatest listeners in the world. You know how I know that?
I've been told. Yeah,
I do. I know first off, if this is your first show, every podcast is someone's first podcast. I have a new graphic novel book out that I wrote. The art is by Will Perkins, and it released everywhere on June 8th. So this last week has been crazy. The book launched, knock on wood or whatever. Things look good. It's looking good. But I had been talking about it. Some may say too much on the old Doctor Who show. And sure enough, you go to the Amazon page of, Amazon's UK store. Book's doing pretty good there. And underneath where it says customers also bought a series of classic Doctor Who Blu-rays and DVDs. So that tells me 100% you're all buying it, you're all pre-ordering it, and it actually makes me feel really good. It was a hard couple years, these past couple years, and so this has been amazing. And all the people tweeting about it, and we have Misfit Scully, and we have Hera the Hound, and they're going out of their way, and they're posting photos, and all the other people. And if I'm leaving you off, it's just because I get nervous, and there's a lot of stuff in my head all the time. But it's been great. It's been amazing.
Yeah, it's been very exciting for me to see all the people tweeting about this, reviewers, friends of the show, etc. Just to see the launch of this that I know you guys have been working so hard on for so long.
Yeah, and
so
it's super hard.
Super exciting.
Yeah, if your default mode is self-deprecation, this is the worst part because you have to constantly retweeting nice things or if somebody said, and it's like so you're sort of like someone just today on Instagram did a really nice story where they talk about positively about the story and whatever. And so, yeah, you want to reshare that. But there's also that voice in your head that's like, oh, you self-serving piece of trash. So, but I'm actually taking this approach with this book, and I'm saying that guy's got to go in the closet because I'm tired of not having a hit. So I'm pushing all that stuff away and doing what it's like George Costanza. I'm doing the opposite of what I normally would do, and we're going to see how it works out.
Hilarity will ensue.
Yeah,
there's going to be a misunderstanding. The wrong person's going to come in the door.
But I have another story. I have another story that is wonderful. But I think we should find out how you have been doing these last 3 weeks before.
Now, I am on the edge of my seat now to hear this other story. I got nothing going on. I'm up in Vermont again. It's beautiful.
Oh, you know the other story, Dan. You know the other story. Well, as you know,
let's let them in on it then.
All right, let's let you guys in on it. And this was a...
This is Eric's last show.
That's my last show. I no longer want to do the old Doctor Who show. No, as you know, Dan and I are fans of Doctor Who. We've both grown to...
Some think that we may not be. Some feel that we've never seen the show before.
As we've done the John Pertwee stories, we've all grown to love Jo Grant and
so
Katie Manning. I've commented before on here, just like following her on Twitter. She just seems like a good person. Like she just has a lot of positive energy, and it's amazing.
A ray of sunshine.
A ray of sunshine in the darkness. Mm-hmm. And she posted this nice video where she was just talking. I don't know if she was recording an audio thing or something, and she was just. And I tweeted at her, and certainly, sure enough, my dog is just like, I got something to say.
There are times where I wish this was a video podcast, because you guys need to see Eric trying to keep his mouth near the microphone as he stretched his legs over, I assume, to close the door off camera.
Yes, to just try to cut the noise down. But I told Katie Manning she was a joy, and she got right back to me, and then I wrote back to her, and she wrote again to us, which I think we've retweeted probably. Yeah. We can put a screenshot of it on the website, but she wished the best to our show. She talked about talking in person, so I told Dan, clearly Dan has to book her as a guest at some point, maybe for
She did say.
Last year she did say.
I'm pretty sure this is legally binding. Let's hope we can say hello properly. Huge hugs to you. So
yeah, hey.
I think that's...
So maybe we'll run into her in the future at some point. It would be great. I would probably be a little too nervous. Dan, you have the better voice of the two of us. You could probably handle the questions. But that was cool. It was just like a nice thing. And it all lined up because we reviewed... one of her stories.
We're
doing that right now. It's happening.
We're about to. Guys, we haven't done it yet.
I had a feeling she was a wonderful person, and it's true, and I have
confirmed.
We have proof.
100% confirmed.
And what I didn't know is, do you know that she dated Jimi Hendrix? Wikipedia had told me.
If it's on the internet.
I did not know that was a thing, but yes, certainly was.
If it's on the internet, it's got to be true. They can't print it if it's not. So
yeah, so that was nice. That was a very nice.
That was very cool.
Doctor Who related thing. And,
is she ever going to be on our show? No. Is she ever going to record something that we can then play on the show for us? No. Is it fun to dream about? Absolutely. Of course it is.
Of course it is.
If we can maybe organize a Twitter mob to get her to pressure her into being on the show. That'd be great.
No, I don't. We don't want to harass her.
Oh yeah, no. I think that's really the only way forward here is to make it as uncomfortable as possible for her to not be on the show.
Yeah, that's
It's a pretty standard tactic.
That was nice. I gotta take a couple steps back and say with the book again.
Oh yes.
We wanted to give one away,
Look
so we're gonna be. Yeah, you can't see this in.
I can see it though.
Dan can see it.
Looks great.
But I guess at the end of the show, we'll say how we were going to give it away. Right?
Yeah, sure.
One of you listeners is going to get it. We will tell you at the end.
One of you listeners is going to get it.
One of us has to sleep on your couch. That's the payment. Everything has a price.
Yep.
All right, Dan. I think we've sort of talked at length about a lot of stuff.
Are we done? Is this the?
I think we're done. That's it. That's the end.
Right.
No.
All right, so the next
because we talked about Jo Grant, we have to talk about Jo Grant.
Oh.
So why don't you hit that button?
Okay.
And let's go look for a time monster.
Let's get into it.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Well, when I was a little boy, we used to live in a house that was perched halfway up the top of a mountain. And behind our house, there sat under a tree an old man, a hermit, a monk. He lived under this tree for half his lifetime, so they said, and he learned the secret of life. So, when my black day came, I went and asked him to help me.
He told you the secret? And what was it?
Well, I'm coming to that, Joe, in my own time. I'll never forget what it was like up there. All bleak and cold it was. A few bare rocks with some weeds sprouting from them. And some pathetic little patches of sludgy snow. Yes, it was just grey. Grey, grey, grey. Well, the tree the old man sat under, that was ancient and twisted, and the old man himself was as brittle and dry as a leaf in the autumn.
What did he say?
Nothing. Not a word. He just sat there silently, expressionless, and he listened whilst I poured out my troubles to him. I was too unhappy even for tears, I remember. When I'd finished, he lifted a skeletal hand and he pointed. Do you know what he pointed at?
No.
A flower. One of those little weeds. Just like a daisy it was. Well, I looked at it for a moment, and suddenly I saw it through his eyes. It was simply glowing with life, like a perfectly cut jewel. And the colors were deeper and richer than anything you can possibly imagine. Yes, it was the daisiest daisy I'd ever seen.
And that was the secret of life. A daisy? Honestly, Doctor.
Yes, I laughed too when I first heard it. So later I got up and I ran down that mountain and I found that the rocks weren't grey at all. They were red and brown and purple and gold. And those pathetic little patches of sludgy snow, they were shining white in the sunlight. You still frightened, Joe?
No, not as much as I was.
That's good.
Hey, this is Jeopardy. This is.
Why haven't you been asked to guest host Jeopardy?
I don't know.
That's pretty strange.
Probably because I'm not bright.
That's not right.
This is the Time Monster, Dan. This is the
Time
final
Monster,
serial from the 9th season, lucky number 9. This is comes to us in 1972. The era of Who that is so close to my heart. This one is written by Robert Solomon, although Wikipedia says Barry Letts is an uncredited writer, and it's directed by Paul Bernard. Now, isn't he a listener of ours, or is that, I think that's a combination of two of our listeners.
That's a combination of two of our listeners.
That had formed
it would
like
be amazing
Voltron.
If that's who it was.
In the 70s to direct this story.
Right.
In this, we have the master who attends college and graduate school to go deep undercover so that he can become a college professor at some unnamed university, and then he builds a time displacement tit for tat. I can't remember the exact Tam Tit, right? It's a Tam Tit.
Tom Tit.
How many little boys were giggling when that was announced on the show?
No one. That's just the name of a bird.
Oh, it's a Tom Tit. It's fine. So the
none of that's funny. It's not funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
The master's got this plan to use this Tom Tit to go back to Atlantis and get a magic crystal and get Kronos and control Kronos, and I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I'm not 100% sure on the overall plot. But that's it, right? Yeah, that's fine. That's all that happens. Joe Grant and the doctor, they end up
then there's
involved
Atlantis.
in this. There's multiple settings.
There's
it's a big unit-heavy story. A lot happens.
They're outside of time and space.
Yeah,
on the border of reality.
Yes.
Typical sort of road trip sort of story.
Classic Who.
A lot of
talk of the women's lib.
Let's dive into it.
Let's dive into it. Dan, what did you think of this 6-parter, The Time Monster?
I didn't watch it.
Oh,
no!
That's an interesting approach.
It was an interesting choice.
I didn't know that was an option. That changes everything.
Yeah. I've decided from now on, it's going to save some time and not watch the stories. This was, honestly, I thought it was a lot of fun. So
what if there was like a podcast service for these type of shows where they just watch it for you and send you the notes? It's like don't have enough time to watch whatever you're
like
reviewing.
Cliff's Notes, but for
exactly
TV
for podcasts.
For podcasts,
you could probably make a killing. It's like they always say, like for the gold rush in California, it was the guy that sold the tools. So for the podcasting, it's the guy that watched the episodes and sold you at a discount.
Perfect.
Okay, go on. That was an
No, I think it's a great business idea. I wish we hadn't given that away to all of our audience because now we got competition. I thought this was a fun story. I love this combination of this doctor, this companion. It was a combination for me of Pertwee's silliness, cleverness. He got a bit of the action hero stuff that we know that he loves to do, all mixed together. I like the fact that we have different settings. We have the whatever it is, the mansion where the science mansion where they're all hanging out.
Yes.
We got Unit, we got the countryside, we got 2 different TARDISi that are interconnected and conjoined. We got existing outside of time and space. We got Atlantis, which was, to be honest, my least favorite part. But it was all mixed together and a lot of fun. So I didn't have any sort of expectations going into this other than thank you folks for tweeting back at us when I said, what did you think? And it was kind of a mix. So my expectations were set low and it stepped right over that bar. I had a lot of fun with this. Eric, what did you think of this story?
Dan, what you guess? What did you think I thought of this?
I think you really enjoyed it.
I loved it. This was like from Go. They were like, okay, let's open on a weird dream sequence with a lot of close-up zooms on a psychiatrist's couch. That was like this insane dream sequence. I was like, this is amazing. Joe comes out, fantastic boots. There's volcanoes and earthquake footage.
Yep.
The doctor,
which we've seen before, actually.
It's like before. Stuff. The crystals, the ideas within this are amazing. Like an object that exists within 2 places at once because it sort of exists outside of time, but you can, it's like the crystal. I think they talk about it being the tip of an iceberg almost, but the actual thing is in Atlantis, but it's also here because it's both places. You get the Yates-Benton combo that everyone loves. I actually forgot about their whole thing.
I still can't tell them apart sometimes.
This is an amazing, like the master is he's great. He does Delgado, right?
Top of his form. This is
perfect.
I loved his performance.
He's got great scenes. I love Pertwee. He's so good, and he's so great with. This is one of my favorite Joe Grant, and a little. Obviously, I had just had that great moment, so it was like, and then no matter what, I was going to be happy. But I thought she was super adorable.
But they have so much the back and forth that they have, little jokes that are just throwaways, like one-line throwaways that are just between the two of them. I love it.
And there's a lot of there's some serious Agent Cooper energy coming off of Pertwee too. Like he has this vision dream, and he's like, I know the thing. We gotta crack the code, solve the crime thing happens. Where he's asking about give me all the reports on earthquakes or whatever because I had this vision dream. I thought that was really cool.
The opening dream sequence was so interesting. It really gave me Rosemary's Baby sort of vibes. The cinematography of it.
Yeah,
it was like the really strange close-ups. Everything felt very off kilter, disorienting. It was really effective as an opener. It's just a strange way to open a story in a way we haven't seen before. Very cool.
There's a story-wise, I liked it a lot, but I'm not 100% sure on so much stuff. What
actually happened? Yeah.
What really happened or why they kept showing the clock tower. The master would look at the clock tower. All these things were coming from the clock tower, and I was like, "Oh, is that going to end up being some kind of?" No, it wasn't really anything. No, I don't know how it was connected. It's just just the idea of time. Even the window washer scene, the window washer goes up very early on when they're doing this thing that's almost like The Fly.
Oh.
Where they're moving an object through time by taking it out of time and popping it back in, but he looks like he's absorbing the crystal energy. I was like, okay, he's going to end up being a monster, but you never see him again. He just falls off the ladder.
He did survive though, which is I'm glad they at least put that in there.
But why was he even in there?
Really weird.
Maybe he knew someone. It was like, you want to be on the show? We can fit you in if you want to be the window washer.
He was probably the custodian of the actual building, and he was just on a schedule. And they're like, all right, we'll shoot it. We'll just add him to the script.
How much? Okay. We should start from the beginning. But
let's do it.
When you saw the time sensor, were you like, oh, that looks like...
It's a big dong.
It's a big dong. Okay.
Yeah.
I imagine... I don't know anything about this episode. I don't know how people see this episode. I imagine that's a meme or something. People are constantly talking.
It would have to be.
It's a little much.
I mean,
but I liked it. I liked it. I thought the acting was great. The characters were great. The locations were great.
For the time sensor, though, the time sensor, it definitely looked like it was just so strange that whenever it got closer to the TARDIS, it got longer. I don't know why it needed to stand up like that.
And they even
no, it was.
He says something about the TARDIS getting aroused.
Yes,
and
like that,
Joe is like. What? Like, so there's a lot of
there's
that.
The whole thing about the personification of the TARDIS. I think we've seen
and Bessie
again. It's always and Bessie for sure. It's always so hard for us to know what we've seen in the right order of what we're because we jump around a lot. Is what I'm trying to say over the course of 100 and whatever episodes. I don't know how much we've talked about like the personification of the TARDIS and that he really thinks that indicates that she kind of directs where they're going to go and things like that. But it becomes super clear in this one. I don't know if in the mythos of the story of the show if we've talked.
Yeah, I had
before,
the same.
We've seen it.
Same thoughts. Like, is this the first time they're really personifying the TARDIS, or had we seen that before and I just can't remember?
Right, and really talking about like the telepathic circuits, which becomes much more to the fore in New Who a couple of seasons ago.
Yep.
But so they have all that. Okay, but coming back to the beginning, so we have this experiment going on. We have the Masters infiltrated.
So the Master, who's a professor,
he's a professor.
As soon as I saw that, and he's talking to people, and he says he has to go like hobnob with whatever, I was like, I want to see that, like where he has to go deep undercover and has to go to staff meetings, like all of the minutia of daily life that he had to go through before this moment, because he must
like
have
an
been
introductory class to physics.
Like he tricked his way into getting a job. He started this project. The project has been going on long enough that the doctor's aware of it. Like it's in science papers. Like everyone at unit's like, oh, this is Tit Tat or whatever it was.
Tom Tit.
Tom Tit. So there's like just the idea of him having to show up at these weekly meetings or whatever, or doing faxes or whatever they were doing.
He's stressing over getting tenure. He's trying to get published.
You got to be published. But anyway, go on. So yes, we're in the science
so we're there
think tank or whatever
at the Newton Institute. So we have these two characters introduced to us for the first time in a while in terms of stories that we've been reviewing. We have a female main character.
Yeah, and she was awesome.
And she was incredible.
And so was he. I thought he was great too. And that mustache.
The two of them together were a great pair. Dr. Ruth Ingram and Stuart Hyde. They were fantastic together.
Yeah, they lean a little too heavy on the women's lib thing, to the point where it's almost like they're just reducing the idea of that to like a joke.
Right.
I'm probably reading too much into it, but it was like enough, or like it was a little. It wasn't even too like, much.
Right. I mean, there were some points where it's like, yeah, of course she should have a say in this, and she doesn't need a man to like give her the okay. She's the senior person between the two of them, etc. But then by the end, there are like actual jokes made at her expense.
Yeah, and I think the idea of women's lib within this universe world is itself a joke. Like they're like the guy's like rolling his eyes or whatever, and the audience would be like, "Oh, you silly!" Like that's a silly idea. But again, I think that's a lot of my own.
But they go the other way with it too, where she tells Stuart when she's towards the end, she's running. Go just stand aside and look pretty, or she says it to
she does.
One of the two.
And Stuart also the card carrying coward or whatever. I paid my dues or whatever. I thought that was funny. But yeah, those two were great.
A lot of good banter between the two of them. A lot of fun.
And great banter with the Master and them.
Right.
And like his passive aggressiveness and like his mid-tier boss energy, like all of that stuff was awesome. And they really had a good time with it.
Trying to be very polite while at the same time obviously seething under it was a lot of fun.
Over politeness.
But then so they're doing these experiments where they're gonna move the matter. Mm-hmm. So transfer of matter through interstitial time. Yep. That's your Tom Tits. Move it from one room to the other. But yeah, they had the window washer thing just was hilarious. I don't understand why they did it, but I love that they did. You just have the guy coming up there, and you just see him this entire time. Like it's a good solid couple of minutes that he's just staring through the outside window into the lab as they're doing this. And then I guess it's just like kind of this oh my god sort of moment, and that's why he falls off the ladder. Nothing actually happened to him. He just like
and to,
it's
like that,
unnecessary.
It was completely unnecessary. But I thought watching it, I was like, because we've seen that 1,000 times, where then that guy has absorbed the energy, and now he's running around the campus killing people. But that did not happen.
None of it. No, he just fell off the ladder and survived, and that was it.
Yep.
So okay. We also find out that Bessie is basically a supercar.
Yeah, like super brakes, like right. It can
super
absorb.
brakes that like absorb momentum. So they showed that, which was kind of fun. Just rolling the footage really fast, and then just they stop.
Yeah, and I will add to that bit. That bit was fine. But there's an entire episode, I think, where the doctor is in Bessie with Joe driving around. Like, this is a 6-parter that should have been 4 parts. So if I could find a fault with it, it's too long. There's a lot of moments that are really nothing happens.
I honestly, we'll come to this, but I honestly don't understand what Atlantis was doing in this story at all. There was, to me, no need for it.
I like the Atlantis stuff.
But it didn't do anything to the story. Like, to me, you could have had the Master trying to call forth Kronos, which we'll get into, call it out so that he can control all of space and time. There's no need for him to actually go to Atlantis.
Well, he needed the crystal, right? I mean,
what I'm saying is, like, they didn't have to be that. Like, the crystal could have existed both in our world and in Kronos's outside of world. Like because we talk about the end that the TARDIS materializes on the boundary between our reality and Kronos' reality, so it could have just been in those. But we couldn't have gotten Ingrid Pitt if we. That's the only reason. I was just going to say the only reason to keep it was for her.
No, I liked all that stuff. I mean, I like that kind of stuff anyway, and like I like the sets because it was like all at the end it becomes like a different thing where you're outside like with the big columns everywhere and Ingrid Pitt's the queen, she realizes the king has been murdered and it's like very theatrical, and then when Kronos comes, everything's falling apart. And it's like down. This huge, multi extras everywhere, and everyone's dead. And then you just see the queen like completely destroyed, like emotionally, and that was
she
a
brought
weird.
Her on herself.
And then you get a naked baby, but we'll get to the.
We'll get to the naked baby later.
You get a Benton in a diaper.
Yep. It's weird that they kept him in a diaper for the rest of the series, but it's fine.
But so to jump back to where you were, though, so UNIT learns about this program. We get the old gang back, right? So we get Mike Yates.
We do get Mike Yates.
Is sort of under... He's hardly in it. I mean, he's in a couple of scenes. You really get a lot more Benton.
It's more Benton in this,
and I forget, like, it's almost like they needed to pick one and funnel all the lines to him. Because there's like this Yates. Joe chemistry with him too, and I brought it up before, and I think I see it again now. And if I ever do talk to her, I would ask, was that supposed to be a thing that they were going to be a couple, or like maybe did you get that vibe at all between the two of them?
Not in this story, but yes, in other stories we've definitely seen some chemistry there, whether it is subtext or whatever. It's definitely there. So.
Right.
Yeah,
but anyway,
we got Yates, Benton, we got the brig, we got a bunch of UNIT soldiers running around. The gang.
We get also the Master's boss, who I guess realizes that he's fudged his resume. This college you say you went to doesn't even exist, and then he does his Master mind power, and that guy is under the Master's control, but he's sort of. Not necessary either. Like I don't think he does anything other than like, distracting people from protecting the Master's identity. Like he doesn't really do much.
No, I mean,
right? You didn't really need him.
All that he was there for, honestly, was for someone for the Master to play off of.
Yeah, and that actor is great, and we've seen him in a bunch of stuff. Probably a bunch of Doctor Who's, none of which I can remember.
Perfect. See, it's that sort of insightful commentary that you come to the old Doctor Who show for.
Yeah.
But no, you're right though. I mean, he didn't do much there, but I did like to seeing him playing off of Delgado, the two of them. So that was fun. There was a moment that we got to hear the Doctor say that they needed to reverse the temporal polarity, which is fun.
Yeah,
so
we get a double.
Not just regular polarity.
Yep. You got the little
temple
inversion,
play.
and they play with that a couple of times. That's how they get out of, I think, the I forget the woman's name, who's the scientist. She flips it to at the end
Ruth,
to try to help people. Yeah, it's so good though. There's like dumb things too. Like clearly there's a room marked radiation.
Yes.
And they're going in there without their masks, or
No,
like
it's
they're
just a
leaving the
regular-
door open, and he's sending people in there all the time. Yeah. Oh,
Okay, so
apparatus. I've always said apparatus, and it's apparatus is how they say it. And obviously, is that a thing in England? You say apparatus, or do you also say minotaur? I've always said minotaur. So this
is,
this is what America did to your language, I guess.
That's right.
Right.
Yep.
Man part time sensor. Where else could we go? I mean, so the doctor builds a
just
man
wanted to
part
pause there
time
awkwardly.
sensor. Which
So
is
the
no, but
biggest thing.
to pause
Yes.
on that.
Please do.
So he makes
Please
a
pause
man.
on the time
Yeah,
sensor.
he makes a man part time sensor. That is actually it matches perfectly. That was they actually used a mold.
It was a mold. Yeah.
But this is similar to the Hartnell story we just did, where he had the key that because they use it to find the TARDIS, right? Isn't that what he says?
True.
He's like,
well,
and
it does. It's not meant for that. Like, it wasn't just for that. It was to measure like disturbances in the temporal field or something
yes,
like that.
But
the
he
Hartnell
says
one
like,
that we
and
just
it's
saw-
perfect for finding a TARDIS.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
it was interesting because there is this key that we just stopped talking about that also does that. But I thought that was interesting. Go on.
The fact that
Dan.
we've seen the two of those back to back, brought that to mind. So here's the important part we need to get to: the being, the creature,
Kronos, the white moth.
that we're trying to summon here. Boy, oh boy, was that something!
That was a lot. That was a lot.
It was a really interesting idea for the way that this could be presented. Mm-hmm. And there were moments of the cinematography where it actually was pretty effective. When it was kept somewhat out of focus, a lot of glare, just a lot of motion, kind of superimposed on top of things, it was really effective. Then, when you see it's clearly a guy in a mask in a chicken suit being hung from the rafters, swinging around, less effective. It was not nearly as good. And there were moments also, this was the worst. So like, there are moments where he's clearly like suspended and he's got his feet up behind him. He's kind of, especially when he's in the radiation room, he's basically just bouncing against walls, which was really kind of fun.
I wish I was that guy though. What a great
I kind of
day.
loved that part because it was freaking weird, and it's just like you can imagine the guys actually freaking out, like Jesus, get me out of this thing. But then there were moments where it was like, it was superimposed from a green screen, and he's going nuts with the arms, and they pull back, and he's just standing in place, and it's just like superimposed going back. It's like, guy, get into it, man. We're gonna shoot from the knees up, like you're gonna see everything. But no, the mask looked really kind of weird. The all
I
white
liked
suit,
it though. I
flapping.
thought they did a really
effective.
good job. I don't understand it though, really. So like, they talk about how it's Kronos the god who with mythology, with Saturn,
Titan,
right?
I
In
think.
Roman mythology with Saturn, and he was Zeus's father, I believe, and he ate people.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I think that's the case. But they talk about when all the way in whenever they get to Atlantis and they're talking to the king, doesn't the king is sort of like I know he's not actually a god, and you get the sense it's like an alien or something, whatever. But so the master is calling Kronos to control Kronos, and the form that Kronos takes is this weird moth creature.
Mothbird.
But
pigeon.
he controls
Dove.
it with a sigil of some kind. I didn't understand
seemed as though
even what
it
his
was-
whole goal was in Endgame. Like, what was he going to do with Kronos long term?
Yeah, I mean,
it's all fine.
Kronos was one of these, was the strongest or the most fearsome of these chronivores that they were talking about briefly, that like devour time or something. I don't know, but yeah, he had that.
Yeah,
sigil
and
that
another form of Kronos
seemed
is
to-
that woman.
Right, so it can
the
take
end.
any form, but instead it decided to look like a moth pigeon man. Which, sure, why not? If you could look like anything, look like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if the master was like. It seemed to me when he first showed it that sigil, for lack of a better term, also because I have the Sandman stuck in my head. But anyway, so he's got the sigil.
Are you reading it again? I mean, we'll have to talk about that later
yeah, we
because
gotta
I'm
talk about
tempted to read through them again.
Yeah, same. Anyway, sorry, tangent. It seemed to me more like Kronos was scared of that thing, and I don't know what it was like. It wasn't about the master exerting control from what it looked like. It just looked like it was cowed by this thing, whatever it is. And I don't know how the master necessarily knew that.
Yeah,
or if that's even the case, but it kind of seemed like it was. I don't know.
He seemed like it was almost an accident. Not that it was an accident, but when he held up the symbol or the medallion or whatever, then he was like, oh, but then he was like, sort of like, I always knew that. So maybe, I don't know. It was weird. And I just, again, I don't 100% know what his overall plot was. Control time, but to what end? Just for generic
to control
power.
all of time. Yes,
like
it's
whatever.
just to control all of space and time.
It's
either
all fine.
blow everything up and destroy all of the universe, or control it. And he didn't care.
But I love all of the, and we talked about the crystal, but the crystal like existing in two realms and the realms overlapping and multiverse. Like this thing is just 100% up my. It's so far up my alley. I should see a doctor.
Oh boy, hello. Well, I mean, it got even crazier when you had the Doctor trying to park his TARDIS inside the Master's
Yes,
TARDIS.
and that was
nuts. But they were both inside each other at the same time.
Yes.
But
so, were they? Were they? Because like
somehow
they weren't really, because the guy went into it, like, you know, it existed in our world where when the priest and the master we haven't even talked about the slow time field or the ridiculous slow running, but I guess we'll get to that.
Yes,
when the master and then he was told the priest like, hey, go in there, then he went in there. But if it was really inside of the Doctor's TARDIS, they almost should have been outside of time, and you shouldn't. It's fine.
Hey, these are things for extra dimensional beings to comprehend.
Yeah, and also if the Master's TARDIS has a working chameleon circuit, so I understand why it looked like a reel-to-reel machine.
Computer.
But when he went to Atlantis, it still looked like that. It should have
he didn't change it.
Updated, but that's fine.
That's fine. He just didn't flip the switch.
It's all good.
But they had the two that was super interesting as they're like kept like leaving one TARDIS, but you're in the control room.
Yes.
Anyway, and the fact, you know, this is a different design for the control room. Used for both of them, but this is a slightly updated version of the set. So like the round rules are different, and
they won off that. Like, so the TARDIS is being transported by flatbed truck, and then the Master is controlling time because he can, and they do. You know, he's bringing in the
you got the knight on horseback
and like old, and you're always like, well, just bring in the future people with guns and be done with it. But so he's bringing all that, and then he eventually brings in a drone or a bomber, and then it bombs the thing, and the TARDIS is knocked out, and then the Doctor and Joe are like, we're just gonna start it here. I can. Can't he not control the TARDIS at this point in the story? That's why he's stuck on Earth. But he's allowed to do it because he's cloned or something. I don't know how it works. But when he goes
again, it's hard because we're out of order of the actual order of the show.
Yeah,
so I don't remember what we've seen.
I can't remember. It seems like he's only allowed to do it because he's hooked on to the Master's TARDIS. But anyway, they walk in and Joe's like, this is a whole new. The TARDIS never looked like this before, and then he's just like, oh yeah, it's redecorate, like because it got hit with a bomb, it just redecorated itself.
I don't think those two had. No, I don't think they had anything to do with each other. I think she just hadn't been in there, and he had updated it. I mean, I don't think it actually has anything to do with anything. I think they just wanted to update the set, so they just.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if like the previous episode, if we had been in the interior, it was a new interior, the old interior, and this was them just being able to redesign it. And it happened in story, but you're saying it probably happened off show at some point.
Seems like it.
Yeah, but I like it. I like the interior of the TARDIS. I mean, if this is a new
unfortunately,
thing.
it doesn't last long.
Doesn't last.
No, apparently.
I like the minimalist aspect of it.
According to the Wikipedia, it actually got a lot of criticism.
Oh, well, there you go.
And coincidentally got damaged between the 9th and 10th seasons, so they had to redo it again. So They call it like the washing up basin TARDIS because it looks like a lot of sinks on the walls. I guess that's my guess.
I love when to jump back to the stupid Kronos. I love that it's treated like a dog the master can't control, and he just locks it at one point in the office, and it's just like bouncing around the office.
Well, you just
and it's like, what are we doing?
Give it a bone and a bowl of water, and it's fine. It's gonna be all right.
But the slow running. Do you want to comment on the slow running and the acting and all of that and the aging?
The first time it was just so freaking crazy is seeing the Brig do the slow run. And the way that I love him.
He's
do not
amazing.
Get me wrong.
He's fantastic.
I love him. But the way that he thinks running looks is not like any other human thinks running looks. And he doesn't really slow. He's very bouncy.
Yeah.
As though he's wearing,
like on the moon.
I don't know. Yeah, like he's wearing moon boots. And he's just kind of bouncing, and the doctor kind of brings him back. But that was really
I love how the doctor brings him back too. It's just like taking a drunk guy that's walking out of the bar and going the wrong way.
Steers him around.
Steering him away from his car. Yeah, no, that was very funny, and we see it a lot.
So strange.
We
do see it a few times.
Yeah, they do it a few times. I loved all of the locations, though. You talked about how it's like a science mansion, but you have that great stuff. All the exterior stuff. You have the stuff that's in Atlantis. I would love to see this because it looked like it was shot on film, and I think all the exterior stuff probably was shot on film. To see like if they could do a Blu-ray or a high definition. I probably can't for whatever reason, but because it's so grainy. But I would love to see like some kind of restored print of this because I thought they did a great job with all the location shooting. I
agree. Even though I didn't really think the Atlantis sequences were necessary to the story, I do like them in terms of the production design and the scene chewing acting and all of that was fun too. But no, I agree with that.
I even like that guy's apartment. I thought that his guy's apartment was cool. He did a lot with the space.
But his apartment was in the same building, like in the same
not sure where. Yeah,
complex. Because they said it was in the house, and they walk over to the building next door. So I guess they live on site there.
But it was cool because it was like flat, and then it was like sunk in, and then he used like these shelves to divide where his bed was. So I was like, it's a pretty good use of space.
Definitely a little bit of a Bachelor vibe there, but so we got him. That's Stewart.
Yep,
he gets
old
aged.
Stewart.
The whatever it is, I guess. I
don't even know how
that sucked the time out of him or something.
It seems to be around the point that the object reappears, right? It's like a splash or something because that's where Benton is when he gets reversed and turned into a baby. He's like in the same spot.
I will say that the age makeup they put on Stewart was pretty effective.
Yeah,
and it's usually horrible, but it looked good.
And the CGI they used for that baby, dynamite. I mean, I thought it looked just like a real baby.
Yeah, there wasn't even a baby there. That was actually
it was just a couple of ping pong balls taped to a naked Benton. What was up? Okay, here's I like this story a lot, but the craft, the arts and crafts portion made no sense and was super dumb. Where the doctor's like, "Give me a wine bottle," like when they're in his apartment, and they spend time getting it wrong first, and then they have to add a cup of tea to it.
Tea leaves, man. Of course,
I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand what it was doing. It messed the master up, and it was okay.
The only part of that I liked is the fact that it ties into or extends the mythology, because the doctor says to Joe or to the rest of them, think of it like jamming a radio signal.
Yeah.
We used to make them at school to jam each other's time experiments. So like just being able to call that back.
That was
cool.
fine. It was just like silly though, because it had like forks coming out of it, and it was like I guess so. Speaking of the doctor and old times. I want to know that story about the darkest day of his life, and he's in a mountain, and he's going to see like a hermit, and the guy. I was like, I want all of that. I don't know if they've built that up or if someone's told that story, but that was a great scene for Pertwee too. Like his acting was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Joe was great. That was one of my favorite moments in all of his run. The two of them and like I think it's the last episode too, right? They're about to be
it's
killed,
either the last or the
they're
next to last, but they were captured in Atlantis.
Prison. They're in Gen Pop. Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was cool because it was just something different for him. Yeah, it was fine. I didn't like it as much as you. I thought it was nice, but it didn't do a whole lot for me. But
well, you're
sure,
a monster.
Sure, I'm a horrible person who doesn't like sentimentality. What else we got?
There were car keys in that stupid thing. Like, I mean, it was like, all right. And then
yes, yeah, whatever that thing was.
Episode 3 dragged a lot too, like the fighting of the. We talked about it a little bit, but like all of the back and forth fighting with the knights and the army, like all of that was like, for what reason?
Yeah. Although we did,
I think
it's either in the third, maybe it was the second one. We got Benton being very wily. He got the phone call that he is supposed to go meet the brig, and the master is able to change his voice to sound like the brigadier. So
very effectively.
So Benton, I was watching him. He's like definitely has some questions, and then he's going to leave the lab, and he opens the window and walks out. Like, what the hell is he doing? Why would he do that? He's a very clever man.
Yeah,
he came back in again up the backside. So maybe they were setting it up with a window washer to like put that into. I don't know, because it's the same thing. Like, he just doesn't fall off the ladder. I don't know. Very strange, but
and then you had that so like back and forth,
to have
like
that initiative.
Yeah, and you had that back and forth, like that was the oldest trick in the book. No, this is the oldest trick in the book. Like, all back and forth action.
Yeah. I mean, so that was fun. At least.
And then there was the TARDIS inside a TARDIS inside a TARDIS. Turtles all the way down, that whole thing.
Yep.
There's a lot of time spent video chatting.
Yeah.
With the doctor, and then he turns the sound off, and then the doctor.
But there was one highlight that I think that you liked.
The Red Room?
The backwards talking.
Yes!
From another place.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Place.
And believe
it wasn't
me, it
wasn't actually backwards, but.
I was like, should I take the audio and then try to play it back? And then I was like,
they
didn't go through the effort that David Lynch went through, so this is not going to work. But I did like that. That I had that note, Doctor talking in the Red Room, in my notes as well.
I just wrote down a man from another place, so that's fine. So we got the telepathic TARDIS.
Yep. And then we got
to time ram.
Time ram.
You gotta be careful of doing a time ram, because if they occupy the same exact moment and space, the entire universe will implode.
Joe saves the galaxy by pushing that
going for it.
dial up, which.
Yep.
That was cool. And then they went to that groovy place. And
she does say groovy at least twice in this episode, which is fun.
Yeah. And I love it. And I thought she's got the best outfits. Like, all of her, like,
she's got the second
feathers.
best outfits.
Oh, who does?
The Queen of Atlantis.
Yeah.
She was definitely acting from the bosom.
Yes.
The entire they were doing a lot of work.
But
a little bit.
Yeah, I love her.
She's so scheming. Because she seemingly actually had a real relationship with what's his name? Her husband, the King Daedalus.
The old man.
We should know his
Dalios. His actual name.
So she actually cared for him and thought that he would be spared, but she also had her ambition, and she was totally into the master from the moment she saw him. He's got the bearing of a god, she says a couple of times, which is kind of fun.
I was a fan of hers from all the Hammer films and everything, so I was very happy.
You were just psyched to see her.
I was
very
psyched to see her.
Yeah. And she was great. The character is so over the top, but she was very, very much acting from the chest.
Yeah, and then so you have like her, and then you have that other guy with the the goth dude with the black eyeliner and the black hair that is also hardly wearing any clothes. So you got something for everyone.
Something for everyone. Yeah.
I thought that he was going to have more of a role too. So he's like sort of built up as this. Kind of the good guy in that world, and then there's like a weird chemistry between him and the Queen. Like maybe they had something in the past, and she sort of went for power instead of love, and I was like, oh, okay. But then he sort of fizzles out. Like you don't really. He gets killed, right? I think he saves Joe. Yeah. Is that what happens to him? But so I mean, he was interesting, but they didn't really. I think you had said this was almost like two stories, right? So you have like You could have been without
To me, that's
Atlantis
what it feels
completely,
like.
and you could have had just an Atlantis story, and the Master story. But yeah, I liked him, but I felt like he was the most underdeveloped of all of these people.
Right. Even the High Priest, who the Master first summons and helps him bring Kronos about. Even he had more to do than this guy. So there wasn't a whole lot going on for him. I like the use of the Minotaur for this. That was pretty
awesome.
cool. This is kind of a fun sequence.
I'm a big
Didn't
fan
really
of
come to much, but it was fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Minotaurs anyway, so that whole thing, I think they could have do we have Minotaurs in Doctor Who and other stories? I don't know, but the whole idea of the maze, they didn't really play on that at all. It was just some guy that wanted to get jacked up. It was like, he was my old friend, and I was interested in magic, and he was interested in getting jacked up, and he just did too much. Now he lives downstairs. Poor guy. But it was cool. I didn't mind the makeup and whatever.
Oh, I thought it was
and
pretty
he
good.
basically just Kool-Aid mans himself through a wall, and that's sort of the end of him.
That's how they got out. Not bad. Yeah, so then at the end we do get Joe fighting the Master and does the time ram, saves the day, and then we go into this the we mentioned before, into this space between realities, and instead of having a giant parakeet, we have a lady, Kronos.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yep.
she's all eyes,
which is
so
cool.
I don't know why-
I like all of this weird stuff that doesn't necessarily make any
Psychedelic,
sense, and it's okay, and it's a lot of cool images. But
Yeah.
I can see how people may not like this.
I could see that.
Like,
too.
I don't know where this falls on the ratings. But
old
if you
rankometer?
were to tell me that everyone hates it, I would be like, yeah, I can see that.
why.
But it's definitely more, it pushes more of my buttons, I think, than maybe everybody else's.
I this is definitely in the top half of the pack for me.
How did you feel about the baby Benton situation? I liked it, but was it too corny for you? Like the fact that
It
it
was
ends
really
with
silly.
a naked Benton that's got to be in
was
a diaper.
funny. Yeah, there's no reason for us to not do that. It was silly and it was fine. Like it totally made sense. What I liked more is everything was surrounding that. The fact that we have the two scientists trying to save the day.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to do it without the help of the Doctor. So they're just really just trying to science it. Just figure out like, if we try this, maybe we can flip it around. And they're trying to unfreeze Unit, who's stuck out in this time thing, in this time field. So it was fun to see them trying that. They didn't even notice that Benton got babyfied for like
and he's
quite
just
a while,
there, like being adorable.
just being a baby. So it was funny. Why not? It's a silly show
fine.
sometimes. So
Yeah,
that's
this
cool.
one definitely has like moments of extreme silliness, like that. You're almost like, well, that was like a interesting choice, or I could see people not liking that too, and that it's weird. But any time you have a grown man that's clearly in a diaper, that's a good way to end.
I see.
End an episode.
This is where I disagree.
Oh.
I don't think he was wearing a diper.
Oh,
I think it's just
you think it just
split
ripped
right
off
off
because
ripped
it
off,
was
like
that could.
I mean, he
probably
wasn't
happen in
wearing
real life.
Incredible Hulk pants, so yeah, it's gonna be hard.
Right, in his last lines, like, you guys want to party, and you're like, what the?
Could you put some?
Who the hell? Did I ever tell you on Twitter someone sent me a photo of a grown man in a diaper? It was like one of those like, I don't know who this person is. It was like several years ago, and I it was the most horrifying thing, and I blocked and deleted it. But it's like, people are weird, man. Right?
are
Who
weird.
would do that? Who would do that? And I never
thought
know
you wanted
until
that
now,
photo.
like, was it a person that thought I would think it was funny? Or was it just a creep? So I guess
it
that's
could
a
be
Venn
both.
diagram that's just a circle, I guess.
It could absolutely be both.
Anyway, on that note, do you have anything more to add to this, or should we jump and see
No.
what people thought?
I think we did it. Let's see what your dog thinks.
Yeah. It's like every time, Dan. Every time.
Every time.
Yeah, so what
Okay.
did the people think of
So
of this?
thank you, folks. We put out as we often do, as we always try to do, we had a call on Twitter to let us know what you thought about this story. You can always see us on Twitter at TODW Show. Show a little bit of feedback. Our friend Paul Paranoid says, this feels like a sprawling epic, though it's only 6 parts. It's in 2 time zones, and an episode dedicated to a TARDIS battle, though I wish they kept the old TARDIS set for the Masters or made them look more distinct from one another. Agreed. It definitely looked like it was the exact same set. They just flipped the door.
Well, that's what I thought, too. I was like, oh, they just, to save money, they literally just used the same thing, and this was only for this episode when he talked about the rearranging. But whatever, go on. I agree with that.
Yeah.
They can't.
Paul continues, it's fun, if a little silly. It's one of the Pertwee stories where the contemporary scenes feel more dated and a little cheaper somehow, while some stories, like The Three Doctors, don't portray when they were made quite as loudly. The flapping Kronos creature is a bit... Panto? I don't know. Panto. It's a little crazy. Yeah. But it could have been effective. I was reading on the TARDIS wiki about this, that the writer of the story, that's not what he had envisioned at all. It was actually rather let down by the effects. He had pictured it more of just like a shimmering being that maybe didn't really have any corporeal form, and instead it was a parakeet. So that's... I could see how someone who had spent all this time creating this character could be let down by something like that. So there's that. Mike Freeberg says, when I was a kid, Kronos seemed somewhat threatening, maybe even epic in this story. At this current point in my life, I use a program called Kronos to enter the hours I've worked at my job.
Which is probably more frightening.
So, it's pretty threatening, too. Yeah, that's just as threatening. Darren Lodge says, the giant white budgie Kronos. Yes, exactly. It really does just look like a parakeet. Ingrid Pitt doing her best bosom acting. Oh, I'm sorry. I must have cribbed that from you. That was in the back of my head. So, thank you, Darren. I didn't realize I was quoting you there. Her best bosom acting as Atlantis is doomed. Joe wearing a terrible costume. Terrible.
Wait, which costume? Great. Oh, no. We didn't even talk about that. When she gets put in the other
Atlantis
dress.
Costume?
I loved it, and I love what they did with her hair.
The wig.
I was like, she's beautiful. It totally worked. So I like that costume, 100%. Unless they mean a different costume.
I don't think so.
I thought that was great.
Joe wearing a terrible costume while listening about daisies. So it was that in that scene, she was looking great. This story is not a favorite, though there are worse. Okay. Damning with faint praise there. Jeff Waddle says, not a great story, but it has its own charm. I find the whole Atlantis storyline better than the contemporary one, but maybe
opposite
that's
of
due
you.
To the lovely Ingrid Pitt. Whatever. I mean, they keep referencing Atlantis in a bunch of different stories, and it never does anything for me. But whatever, it's fine. It was fine. Delgado at his most scheming here, and he saves it. Unfortunately,
he's great in it.
More like an origami budgie than a threat. Yeah, no, he really is. I would kind of agree. Not that he necessarily saves it, because I think it was okay on its own, but he definitely elevates the story. He's just so well utilized in this one. World Enough in Time podcast says, easily one of the silliest Doctor Who stories, which somehow manages to be a sprawling epic and a vapid mess at the same time. But on the right day with enough snacks and alcohol, it has its definite charm. Oh, and the TARDIS sniffer outer is an interesting prop. I
think we commented on what...
I think we got it.
Yep.
Great. So Dan Hadley says... sorry, this is a separate thing. Someone else called us out. Someone who hosts another podcast, thankfully, was very kind to call us out as one of his favorites.
Oh, very nice. Thank you.
So that was very nice.
What podcast is that other podcast? Or did you say The World?
No, this is a different. This is, let's see, Earth Shadows.
All right, Earth Shadows. So check out Earth Shadows.
So that was very, very, very nice.
That's a cool name, Earth Shadows. I like that. I don't know if that's from something or if they made that up.
But very cool, very cool. Let's see. We still have more stuff. Dieter says, references Hippias, the guy with the black eyeliner. The acting chops of Hippias. A lot of emotions, sort of. It was just such a throwaway character that was built up for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, you have this great dark wave 80s dude ready for action.
Ready to go.
I mean, he had some good... I mean, he was fine. He had...
It just
he
wasn't.
he did the best he could with what with what
very
they gave
little.
him.
Yeah, it wasn't him. It wasn't his fault. I don't think. It's just it seemed like a kind of distraction. The whole Atlantis thing just seemed muddled to me. It's fine.
I love the sets though. I thought the sets were great.
I don't disagree with that.
They look cool, the temples and whatnot.
Let's see what else we have. Just a couple more here. Misfit Scully says, "Hi guys, what's not to like about the Time Monster? Joe wears a funky outfit. The Master puts on an accent. Pertwee's perm doesn't move, and I snigger every time Tom Tit is said. Bessie speeding around and some dodgy pretending to run in slow-mo. A great story. No, I mean, I titter when I hear Tom Tit, so I get it. Oh, and also Misfit Scully says, loving Goblin, by the way.
Oh, thank you for
which is very nice.
For that.
Very nice. Let's see, there's the classic bit with the Doodlebug, creates a time paradox, says Paul Paranoid. I don't know if there was... How was there a time paradox when the Doodlebug, the plane comes in and bombs them there? I mean, the Master's pulling things out of time that had happened in that area to try to thwart Unit, but I don't know why necessarily. I mean, I guess it's a time paradox just because it's pulled out of time, but it's fine. So there's that. Was there any? I think there was one more here. Let me see if I can get to it. No, looks like that was it.
Yeah, we have some feedback though on our previous, previous review for The Chase. So this comes to us from Andrew. Listening to the Chase podcast as I clean this morning. Not at the end yet, but does anyone tell you that the actor playing Morton Dill, who we talked about at length, Morty Dill, is the actor who plays Stephen Taylor? Now, did we know that?
Oh,
it's the same person.
I had no idea of that.
So apparently, according to Andrew, the cast and crew enjoyed him so much on the set that, because when he was playing Morton Dill, that instead of giving him a much-needed spin-off show, they decided to create a companion character for him to play since Barbara and Ian were leaving. And that sort of feeds into what you said last time, that we will see more Stephen Taylor. He's going to be a companion. But I had no idea it was literally the same actor. So that was very cool. And thank you for pointing that out to us. And also
both. Wow.
Andrew has his own podcast. Oh wait, he's got more stuff to say here. So he also says, "P.S. I took my daily cereal and turned it into a podcast. Mine is 7 minutes." Okay, we're talking about that. But he also says about the Time Monster. Not high on most people's lists. Mm-hmm. But I find it enjoyable. I cannot read.
No, words are hard.
Why am I having such a hard time? Okay, I'll start again. I'll start again. Time Monster next. Not high on most people's list, but I find it enjoyable though. Give me the Unit family any day. Episodes 5 and 6 do kind of go off the rails though. I would agree that 5 and 6 do sort of drag a little bit, and even, you know.
Well, 6 is the last one, and Nick goes crazy with the time ram and the TARDIS is fighting, and
I found the most of the delay happened when they were just doing the fighting and whatnot.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is Homos of Harmony Haven is the podcast that Andrew does. So if you haven't checked that out, you should check that out. And that is, I think, all that I had for stuff, right? I mean, we have to talk about the book giveaway.
Yeah.
Oh, you know what I should say is I think I wanted to get to 1,000 followers on Twitter. If I got to 1,000 followers on Twitter, I was going to randomly pick one and give away a book. That happened. I randomly picked someone. It was Lisa P. and Andrew T., who have their own podcast called... Let me get this right. Round the Archives. So you can check out Round the Archives. But they came up as the winner, and I'm assuming they are followed by a bunch of Doctor Who podcasts. I think that's how they found me, was through this show. So if you're listening, I already talked to you anyway on Twitter, but you'll be sending your book out. But I want to send another book out just to a Doctor Who show listener. And I think we were trying to figure out what's the best way to do it. And so I think we can try, if you do something nice for someone, I don't care what it is, pay for their meter, or call your mother and tell her you love her, or
donate a kidney,
donate money to charity, or volunteer your time.
No,
donate a
it has to
kidney.
be a kidney.
Take a
Thank
kidney
you,
from
thank you.
someone that you don't like
and give it to
someone who needs it.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. And by that, say don't do that.
Don't do that at all.
Tweet at us and make sure you
include
tag the Old Doctor Who Show's Twitter account.
Yes.
And you obviously can tag Dan and I too, but make sure you tag the Old Doctor Who Show's account and say what you did, and then Dan and I will look at those things and pick what we think is the most generous or worthy of whatever. We just want people to do nice things. I couldn't figure out like
Get
what.
free books.
Yeah, what would you do? Like tag people you think like. I didn't want it to be. Do something.
Not
nice.
all about
the world's
this.
sometimes very hard, and it could be a small thing. It doesn't have to be crazy. So that's what we'll do, and then I'll mail it out by next time we'll announce the winner. Cool.
I think that's great.
Cool.
I think that's awesome. Everyone do that.
Do we have anything
so remember,
else, Dan?
You could remember to tweet at us with that information. You can do that at TOW Show on the Twitters. We're also TOW Show on Instagram, where we put up a bunch of the GIFs. Obviously, we're at the olddoctorwhoshow.com, which is where you can see all of the GIFs, all the other stories we've done. You can subscribe to the show if you're not already. You can do that through iTunes Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all over the place. Our next story we're doing is The Invisible Enemy.
Yes.
The Invisible Enemy. So that's fine. So we got little Tommy Baker coming up next in The Invisible Enemy. So that's going to be cool. If you want to do us a solid, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or wherever you subscribe. That would be lovely. We got one last time. We could use another.
I didn't look up this time.
I saw none. I looked.
Okay, so we don't have any this
You can
time.
also email us if you'd like to leave a little longer form thing, the Old Doctor Who Show at gmail.com. And if you feel like you could use a sticker in your life, we have some of those left. You can
100%.
Send us a self-addressed stamped envelope to the Old Doctor Who Show, P.O. Box 2131, Red Bank,
You got
New
it.
Jersey, USA, 07701. And we will get you some stickers, send them out in
Yep.
the mail.
And on the olddoctorwhoshow.com, it's in the footer. So if for some reason you
It's the very bottom. That's where I
can't
was
hear
just
what we're
reading it
saying,
from.
it's always going to be there.
Yep.
It says copyright 2016.
Yeah, we let our copyright expire. So if anyone wants to
someone
take
can
over the show,
show.
you got it. It's yours.
What's sad is like 2016, like that's how long it's been since we updated it, and our show's older than that. So we've been doing this for a long time, Dan.
Very, very long time.
So long.
Well, here's to another 20 years of this, Eric.
Yeah.
If there's anything else,
no, I
let
think
us
we're
know.
good. Thank you all.
All right.
Thank you all, and thank
you,
you very
everybody.
much for your support of Goblin too. That means a lot. Peace.
It's fantastic. Bye, everybody.
She had an aura of broom, she was tired, you can't hide it. When I looked in her eyes, they were blue, but nobody home. Perhaps she could have been a killer if she didn't walk the way she do. And she do. She opened strange doors that we'd never close again. She began to whine out, jealously scream, waiting at the lights, know what I mean. Scary monsters, super creeps, keep me running scared. Scary monsters, super creeps. Keep me running
Where's my robot? You know?